Chapter 61 Huge Harvest, Big Fortune, thanks to my friends for the first order. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Excited, Lear wanted to laugh 3 times, with a high spirit. He immediately ordered the bubble beasts beside him to save the swamp wasps. These are all his subordinates. The transformation between enemies and ourselves is always so rapid. The bubble beasts around him immediately took action. First, extinguished the smoke still burning in the bubble, and then Bobo took the lead and blew out huge bubbles. After the bubble rose to a certain height, it expanded rapidly, crack-bang. A huge air wave swept in all directions, blowing away the surrounding smoke. Lear took advantage of this time to release his mental power, leaving the breath of the residents of the City of Dew in the soul of the Swamp Queen. Swamp people, wetland lizard men, and Delsa people were all branded by him, and the breath was hidden in their minds, which was not a difficult task. Those swamp wasps flying on the edge of the sky, not eroded by the smoke, and in a state of restlessness saw the smoke dissipate. Immediately whistled down and launched an attack, but halfway through the flight, the momentum softened and began to rise again. Strange, how come they are all our own people? Seeing this, Lear felt even better, turning his head and looking at the Swamp Queen wasp that was constantly wriggling on the ground. He felt a little distressed. He immediately asked Bubble Beast to return to the original route to get water, and asked the wetland lizard men waiting behind to come to support. Not long after, Haggis rushed over with the wetland lizard men warriors, looking at the dense swamp wasps all over the ground. His scalp tingled. He was a little relieved. Fortunately, the adults have extraordinary means. If they really had a head-on conflict with these insects, the consequences would be unimaginable. Even if he had 10 times more people, I'm afraid they would just be sent to eat. Master. Lear turned his head and looked at the wetland lizardman hero, his smile not diminishing. Let our warriors go to the surrounding area to be on guard. The swamp wasps are no longer a threat. Today's harvest can be said to be full. The smile on his face couldn't be dispelled. Not long after, several little cute guys controlled bubbles filled with clean water and floated back, immediately controlled the bubbles to enter the dense mud swamp wasps. The bubbles slowly fell down, magically wrapping up all the struggling mud swamp wasps on the ground. The bubbles were not damaged, let alone leaking. After being soaked in clean water, the unconscious mud swamp wasps slowly woke up, and from time to time they gurgled and spit out bubbles with smoke in the water. When their life breath stabilized, the water flow in the bubbles surged, and these wasps were directly expelled from the bubbles and fell wetly to the ground. But looking around, half of them were in a state of stiffness and no longer moved. Obviously, they died because of excessive smoke inhalation. 8 bubble beasts, each of them controlled 3 large bubbles. One bubble can clean thousands of them. Under the high speed and convenient soaking, all the mud swamp wasps on the ground were soaked in a short while, but the thick smoke mixed with dragon feces was too fierce for the swamp wasps. After the detoxification, the number of swamp wasps still alive on the field was less than half. Lear had no time to care about these things at this time. His eyes were fixed on the swamp queen bee, who had been soaking in the clear water for a long time and still had no reaction. He was a little nervous. This was the treasure that was going to kill him. Ordinary swamp wasps would die, and if they were gone, they could be cultivated again. The queen bee couldn't be in any trouble at all. Sensing that the other party's life breath had not fluctuated too much, he moved his mind and the magic seed was running. The swamp gift was released. After the powerful healing spell poured in, the other party's breath stabilized a little, but the injury was too serious and there was no obvious effect. Seeing that the healing spell was effective, Lear smashed it 20 times in a row. Finally, 4 or 5 minutes after the other swamp wasps woke up, the swamp queen twitched a few times. A string of bubbles with smoke came out of her mouth. The breath of life rose rapidly, and gradually woke up. Lear's mood was bright instantly. Saved. Ha ha ha. Pop! The bubble burst, and the swamp queen bee fell smoothly to the ground, slowly stood up, flapping its wings hummingly, and the water vapor on its body evaporated directly. This ferocious queen bee seemed to have noticed something at this time, and slowly turned her head to look at Lear. It was stunned at first, and then stepped forward with kindness. Mental power surged out. Master. A soft voice sounded in his mind. Compared with the previous cold and fierce voice full of murderous intent, it was completely 2 people. Lear smiled happily. This is his own people. I have imprinted the breath of the subordinates of the city of Dew in your mind, don't let the swamp wasps attack them. Yes, although the queen bee could not speak, there was no obstacle to normal communication with the other party. While thinking, Lear saw the corpses of swamp wasps all over the ground. Gather all the swamp wasps and count their approximate number. The queen swamp bee did not hesitate, raised her head, and let out a low hiss. The extremely penetrating sound instantly resounded around. The swamp wasps, whose condition had recovered a lot, immediately flapped their wings and began to slowly rise into the air. The ones that were originally in the distance also gathered in a large group. In the blink of an eye, the sky seemed to be covered by a black cloth and gradually dimmed. Looking up, all I could see were the ferocious figures of the swamp wasps, a wingspan of 30 centimeters, a body the size of a fist, and a black tail stinger that was more than 10 centimeters long. Ferocious, especially the stinger. If you get stabbed, it will hurt you so much that you will fly to the sky, and these wasps are at level 5. Who can he go to for justice? The arc of Lear's mouth was harder to suppress than AK. Soon, the queen of the swamp gave a rough estimate of the number. The original number of the swamp wasps was over 200,000, and more than half of them were killed, leaving only 90,000. Looking at the queen of the swamp reporting seriously, Lear's heart trembled. 90,000. Only left. These are 90,000 level 5 swamp wasps. They are not some random cats and dogs that can be manipulated at will. And even if they are 90,000 ordinary wasps, they can kill people. This number is too exaggerated. If they attack at the same time that he can already imagine the desperate expression of the enemy when he sees the swamp wasps that cover the sky and the sun. After this battle, the power in Lear's hands has grown explosively. If he had controlled the swamp wasp when facing the half-Malok before, he would have been able to defeat them with one hand. And from then on, he no longer had to worry about the several forces near the city of Dew that threatened him. This time, it was a real transformation. It was awesome. Lear took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down his excitement. Do you have a name? The swamp queen was stunned for a moment, and hesitantly transmitted her mental power. Acania. Lear repeated it twice and nodded. Acania, I heard before that the swamp queen has the power to improve people's potential. This is the goal of this hunt. It's just that I accidentally enslaved the swamp wasp. The swamp queen responded immediately. Yes, when there is enough food, we will use the excess energy to secrete propolis. When propolis dries, it will form a unique blood-colored crystal, which has extremely huge energy. It is the reserve food we leave for ourselves. But blood-colored crystals are extremely difficult to brew. If you need them, you have to wait for a month. Lear felt relieved. When enslaving the swamp queen bee, what he was most worried about was the matter of improving his potential. If you can only get your talent by killing the other party, it is undoubtedly killing the chicken to get the eggs. But fortunately, he did not fall into such a dilemma. Now Acania only needs to breed for another month, and he can get the treasure that he has been thinking about and can activate his talent. This is a win-win situation. He won twice by himself. If there are a few more waves, getting rich is not a dream. More importantly, the price paid for enslaving the swamp wasps this time is only the newly collected black dragon broadleaf grass and the dragon feces purchased at a low price before. Compared to the harvest, the cost is negligible. Blood crystal, how long can you breed it? Acania thought for a moment and said. Normally, it takes half a year to a year. If there is enough food, it can be shortened to 3 months. Lear felt more and more comfortable. This is not a one-time thing. As long as he keeps Acania in the future, he can continue to get queen bee crystals. So happy. After the brief conversation, Lear immediately asked Bubble Beast to collect all the dead swamp wasps. These insects are all level 5 life, even if the energy contained in their flesh and blood is not as good as that of normal-sized life such as humans and barbarians, it is still very considerable under the huge number. The flesh and blood slaughterer with divinity is still waiting for him to feed it. After the battlefield was cleaned up, Lear looked at the giant tree where the swamp wasps lived. There was still half of the wasp nest hanging on it. There were no swamp wasps coming in and out, and it looked a little dilapidated. It was a bit of a pity. If the nest can be moved back, the swamp wasps will have a place to settle down. the Swamp Queen noticed Lear's gaze and responded immediately. Master, if you need us to move the nest, we can dismantle the nest and rebuild it. It only takes 3 to 5 days. Building a nest is the natural instinct of wasps. Even if there is nothing, they can build it quickly. Lear's eyes lit up. Good, good. Not only did you put yourself in, but you also gave me an extra house, right? So sensible, I appreciate it. It would be great if all swamp life was like this. At this moment, a sound of footsteps approached quickly from a distance, and 2 wetland lizard men rushed to Lear panting. He said in a hurry. Master, the 2-headed ogres are heading towards the city of Dew. They have discovered our territory. 2-headed ogres. Lear turned his head and glanced at the dense swamp wasps in the sky. His face was very strange. There are about 70 or 80 monsters, and their levels are as high as 10. The opponent's location is only about 10 kilometers away from the city of Wei Lu. He didn't have enough power before, and he hadn't been able to eliminate this threat. Now he has taken the initiative to provoke. Acania, bring all the swamp wasps that have you seen the swarm of natural disasters. Let you see the world today. The 2-headed ogre's cubs. Chapter 62, a small territory, 1 or 200 lizard warriors, can be destroyed with one hand. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A group of 2-headed ogres, with an average height of 2.5 meters, like little giants, are moving quickly towards the direction of the city of Wei Lu. 2 hideous and ugly heads grow on their necks, twisted and weird. The muscles on their bodies are bulging high, as if they were forged with steel, full of power. In the center is the 2-headed ogre chieftain, who is 2.8 meters tall and has muscles that look like explosions. In his hand, he holds a giant mace that is 2 circles thicker than his thigh, with a green face and fangs, and red eyes that are ferocious and cruel. His bare feet step on the mud, splashing large pieces of mud and water, and his animal skins and clothes are stained. The rotten smell of the swamp is not as bad as the stench emanating from them. My king, the territory established by those lizard men is just ahead. This morning, I also saw a large number of Delsa people. They must have just been recruited. As long as we can kill those lizard men, this territory can be directly ruled by us. The 2-headed ogre chief nodded in appreciation. Yes, this swamp should belong to the great ogre, that he said with a bit of resentment in his eyes. Those damn traitors would never have thought that under the abyss of darkness, there is actually a passage to the main plane. They would never have thought that we are still alive. The richness of the main plane is something that those traitors can't even dream of. When we accumulate strength again, we will definitely kill back to the tribe and kill all the traitors. There can only be one king in the Redstone tribe. The 2-headed ogres around him were all excited. My king. You are our king. The tall 2-headed ogre waved his hand to quiet the crowd. The eyes became cold. That territory has gathered so many people in a short time, it must be hiding some secrets. We must occupy it. He brought too few tribesmen. If he did not enslave other races, it would be impossible for him to complete revenge with just a few dozen people. Only by enslaving and commanding a stronger army can he regain the throne. The 2-headed ogre follower on the side shouted. My king, that small territory has only 1 or 200 lizardmen warriors. The day before yesterday, I found that their level was only level 7. I only need to lead 2 teams to flatten them. The 2-headed ogre chieftain smiled proudly. Conquer the swamp, start here. He is a level 11 warrior, only 1 step away from breaking through the hero. He can flatten that territory alone. The army was a little excited and immediately sped up. After passing through the wetland swamp, they finally saw the shadowy territory in front of them. In a trance, a tall and magnificent building woven with vines suddenly appeared in sight. Compared with the barren swamps around it, it is so eye-catching and unique. The eyes of the 2-headed ogre chieftain became hot. The reason why they discovered this territory is because of this building that keeps rising. I don't know what kind of life those lizard men enslaved, but they can use vines like elves to build houses. Compared with the territory where they built a thatched house after several months, it is very different. Conquer it, occupy it, this is the beginning of everything. When he accumulates enough strength, he will return to the Redstone tribe and unify the 2-headed ogres. At that time, This swamp can even become their bridgehead, constantly eroding and encroaching on the territory of the main plane. Perhaps a great ogre empire can be established. The inner ambition is unlimited at this moment. It seems that I have seen the scene of myself ascending the throne and thousands of people bowing to him. He is the king who will lead the Redstone tribe to the top. There is not much obstruction in this area. After walking out of the mud, the territory is 400 or 500 meters ahead. Seeing the busy crowd, the two-headed ogre chieftain became more and more excited. He clenched the mace in his hand. Kill! The roar just came out. Suddenly, buzz buzz buzz. A dull sound like thunder came quickly from far to near. The light in the sky also dimmed at this moment. The two-headed ogre chieftain looked up. Suddenly, an indescribable sense of fear surged in his heart. Wasps. Countless wasps. The appearance is black and yellow, the size of a fist, and the stinger is like a steel needle hanging upside down on the abdomen. The wings flashed and made a buzzing sound. The wings spread out like a bird. It is more than 10 times larger than an ordinary wasp. Just seeing the other party's stinger, I felt a chill. If I was stung by this, I felt a chill in my spine just thinking about it. My king, have those wasps also set their sights on this territory? That should be it. With so many people, they are enough for the wasps to eat. The two-headed ogre chief's expression gradually eased when he heard this, and he was about to wave his hand to let his subordinates evacuate and hide first, but before he could speak, he saw that those ferocious wasps did not go to that territory after flying close, but swarmed straight at them. The mind buzzed, and the blood rushed from the soles of the feet to the head, and the back suddenly became cold, the face turned red, and the body trembled uncontrollably. The insect tide was like a sharp arrow, piercing down. No. Why are they attacking us? The hysterical roar resounded through the sky. Die! The two-headed ogre chief swung the mace in his hand fiercely. The terrifying power burst out and hit the dense swarm of bees. Bang! It smashed 20 or 30 directly, splashing a large amount of pulp, but the next moment, the swamp wasps that came like a tide directly submerged it. Ah! The screams of the two-headed ogre came one after another. The thick skin, strong body, and explosive muscles were all unable to stop the fierce sting of the wasp. The heavy weapons wielded in their hands seemed so powerless and ridiculous in the face of the attack of the swarm. The ambition to conquer the world just now was poured on his head by a basin of cold water, piercingly cold. The two-headed ogre chief only felt that every part of his skin was crawling with wasps, and the opponents. Stings pierced into his body one by one. The trembling poison eroded every pore of his body. Ah! A hysterical roar came out of his throat, and his whole body swelled up, and his momentum soared. A terrifying scarlet flame suddenly ignited on his body. Chi and blood. A unique ability of heroes. At the critical moment, the ogre chieftain actually took a crucial step between life and death. But it still didn't work. The furious two-headed ogre chieftain swung his club with all his strength, killing hundreds and thousands of wasps, but he was facing countless swarms of insects. Under the sharp sting of the tail, his breath quickly decayed, and his face turned blue and ugly. Under the impact of the crazy woodlice, he fell to the ground and was covered by wasps. When the gap is not widened to an untouchable level, the human wave tactics are a classic that will never go out of date. But just when the two-headed ogre chieftain was extremely weak and thought he was about to reach the end of his life, those hideous wasps suddenly dispersed. He swelled up high, and there was only a slit in his eyes, and there was a bit of confusion. Without understanding what happened, he subconsciously turned his head to look at the sky. In a daze, he saw a scene that he would never forget. Surrounded by endless wasps, a heroic human boy slowly fell from the sky. The ferocious and fierce insect tide that covered the sky and the sun lingered around him and became his background. It was as if he was an ancient god who controlled the insect swarm and came across time and space. A queen bee that was much larger than other wasps guarded him. Like a saint who believed in gods, the other party slowly fell. His cold boots stepped on the ground, and a pair of indifferent eyes looked down from a high place. He is the master of this territory. The two-headed ogre chief finally discovered the truth of the matter at this moment. He thought of his previous thoughts and his arrogant idea of conquering the swamp and establishing an empire. The two-headed ogre chief had a strong sense of shame in his haze. How could he have such an unrealistic fantasy? The territory ruled by such a person is also something he can touch. Is he worthy? Before he passed out, he could hear a sentence. This guy suddenly broke through and became a hero? Interesting, bring him back to the city of Wei Lu. Chapter 63 Redstone Tribe Demiplane. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The battle subsided, and Lear stood in a swarm of insects, turned his head and looked at the two-headed ogre corpse that had already been silent, and was a little surprised in his heart. These are fierce level 10 warriors. Even if they were placed in Lauren City, they are elite. These 70 or 80 people were drowned by the swarm in a few minutes. The two are completely not at the same level. He felt relieved. This power is now completely under his control. He waved his hand to let the wetland lizard men who came from behind take back the two-headed ogre chieftain who temporarily broke through and became a hero. The bodies of others were directly carried back to the territory. The blood-eating flesh slayer was still waiting for food. The battle broke out suddenly, and ended even more suddenly, when Lear returned to the territory with the swarm of bees. Bane was staring at the hideous mud wasps in the sky, his eyes full of disbelief. My lord, these mud wasps that he stuttered for a long time and couldn't say a complete sentence. It was true that he had the black dragon broadleaf grass collected, but he did not expect that Lear was not going to hunt the queen bee, but to enslave the entire hive. Who could have thought of this? Outrageous, too outrageous. Lear smiled. He pointed to the swamp queen bee flying slowly beside him. Bane, this is the swamp queen bee, Acania. She will lead the bee colony. These swamp wasps will not harm our residents. Bane immediately saluted the swamp queen bee. Bane, hello, Lord Acania. At present, the Lord has appointed me to temporarily handle the government affairs of the city of Dew. You can ask for anything you need. In this world full of magic, as long as life reaches a certain level, it will basically have strong wisdom. They have long been accustomed to it. Acania looked at Bane with her compound eyes. The spirit emanated. Greetings, Lord Bane, I am the master's loyal servant. Bane's heart trembled. He secretly glanced at the calm Lear. He shouted wildly in his heart, sure enough, the Lord must be the Son of God, he must be. Otherwise it would be impossible to be so outrageous. This is the cruel and tyrannical queen of the swamp bee. How long has it been since he became a loyal servant? But he was not convinced. In terms of loyalty, who can compare with him? Lear didn't know that this swamp man hero had so many psychological activities, and said slowly. You should communicate frequently. There are still many things that need your cooperation in the future. Bane and the Queen of the Swamp Bee responded in unison. Yes, Lord. As you wish, my lord. Lear nodded, thought for a while, and said softly. Acania, send people to explore the vicinity of the city of Weird Dew to see where to build a nest. There are 12 tall tree people in the central area of the city of Weird Dew, but compared to the towering tree of 70 to 80 meters high where the swamp wasps originally built their nests, it is still too small to support more than 90,000 swamp wasps. Moreover, if they are stationed in a territory, tens of thousands of swamp wasps will rise and fall every day, which will produce huge noise. He just experienced it deeply. Being surrounded by insect swarms is cool, but the noise is really unbearable for ordinary people. It is unbearable to have a mosquito flying by your ear, and tens of thousands of swamp wasps with a wingspan of 30 centimeters flying up can kill you. Yes, master. The swamp queen bee immediately responded. After leaving, she flapped her wings and flew into the swarm of insects in the sky, and ordered the worker bees to search for suitable areas for nesting. At the same time, some swamp wasps were asked to go back to dismantle the old nest. Lear didn't care about Acania. The queen bee was no less intelligent than an ordinary adult, so she arranged it herself. As for the nesting location, he didn't have high requirements. As long as it was within 3 kilometers. Swamp wasps are flying creatures, and they can quickly come to support even if they are a little far away. The distance will not cause too much restriction. After Acania left, Bane seemed to think of something and stepped forward cautiously. Looking at the strange behavior of this swamp hero, he asked curiously. Bane, what else? Bane immediately said firmly. My lord, my loyalty to you is unmatched by anyone. Lear's mouth twitched. Why did he say this for no reason? Okay, I know, go down to work. Bane immediately turned around and left happily. look, my lord still needs me. The impact today is a bit big, and this swamp man's mentality is unbalanced. While thinking, Lear looked at the wetland lizard man who was carrying the corpse of the two-headed ogre. He stepped up. All these corpses are sent to the side of the flesh and blood slaughterer. The divine life that is transforming needs flesh and blood to complete the transformation. He hasn't fed much since he got it yesterday. At this time, Bubble Beast also returned with more than 100,000 level 5 swamp wasp corpses. More than a dozen large bubbles were filled. Lear waved his hand and asked these little guys to follow the wetland lizard men. The flesh slaughter was placed next to the level 9 swamp treemen. Since these treemen were conquered, their presence has been very low, but as the last line of defense of the City of Wisdom, it has always been his safety guarantee for hunting during this period. As long as the level of the swamp treeman is upgraded to level 10, it can leave the earth and walk freely. The role it can play is completely different. Unfortunately, it will take some time for authority to be revealed. Now he cannot promote lives with potential above 2 stars. Soon, the wetland lizard men piled dozens of two-headed ogre corpses that were 2 meters tall and as strong as bulls next to the sleeping flesh and blood slaughterer. The sturdy two-headed ogre instantly turned into a baby compared to the flesh and blood slaughterer who was over 3 meters tall without his head. Massive swamp wasp carcasses were also dumped aside, piling up into a hill. A feed. What a feeding! Lear looked at the stitched monster and raised his eyebrows slightly. I opened the previous intelligence prompt and looked at it a few more times. Is it the same as improving the potential of the wetland lizard men before? In confusion, he suddenly saw a faint scarlet light emitting from the flesh and blood slaughterer. Light surged out and enveloped the surrounding corpses. The corpses seemed to have been soaked in high-concentration sulfuric acid. Stab. Emitting puffs of smoke, then let it stir-fry quickly to dissolve. It turns into residue at a speed visible to the naked eye. The speed was so fast, in just a dozen breaths, more than 100,000 mire wasps, and 70 or 80 two-headed ogre corpses were all devoured. There were only fragments of debris left on the field. Lear could sense that after devouring so many corpses, the aura of the flesh slayer became slightly stronger. After eating so much, he only got a little bigger. He was quite surprised and delighted. The opponent's foundation is absolutely terrifying. Cultivate, intensify cultivation. And with the presence of these terrifying natural disasters like swamp wasps, hunting can be carried out on a larger scale. Don't worry about flesh and blood. At this moment, a wetland lizardman warrior came quickly to report the news. Master, the captured two-headed ogre has awakened and asked to see you. Lear was a little surprised. How long did it take for the two-headed ogre chief to wake up after being so seriously injured? Somewhat curious, he turned around. Arriving at the holding area, Lear looked at the awakened ogre with interest. The two-headed ogre chief was now bound like a rice dumpling by chains as thick as his thumb. It was difficult to even breathe and I couldn't move at all. Aga stared at it coldly. Once the other party made any change, the wetland lizard man hero would immediately teach him how to behave with a steel knife. Tap 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 tap. Hearing the footsteps approaching, the two-headed ogre chief lying on the ground, covered in bruises, with swollen eyelids and only a line of eyes exposed, looked sideways. The heroic figure he saw before he fell into coma gradually became clearer. His face became a little complicated. I didn't expect that humans would build a territory in this swamp. Lear looked down at this creature with 2 heads calmly. The opponent has a main head and a smaller secondary head growing next to its neck. It was the main head that spoke, and the secondary head always had its eyes closed. These lives are really interesting. In modern times, these are called conjoined twins. They are congenital defects that can be cured. The two-headed ogre didn't wait for Lear to answer, and his voice became deeper. Great human lord, I am willing to use all the wealth of the Redstone tribe in exchange for my life. My revenge has not been completed yet, and I am not willing to accept it. Even if it means death, I will hang all those damn betrayers. Lear's eyes narrowed slightly. Redstone tribe? Where are your people? Also in the swamp. The two-headed ogre subconsciously wanted to shake his head, but couldn't move his head and his body squirmed. After regaining consciousness, he said bitterly. No, the Redstone tribe is not in the main plane. Our tribe exists in a demiplane. As he spoke, his tone became excited. Those damn traitors killed my father half a year ago and took away the throne. While escaping, my men and I accidentally came to the swamp. The Redstone tribe has the wealth we have accumulated over hundreds of years. As long as you are willing to help me eradicate that damn traitor, I am willing to dedicate everything to you. Even if it means my life. Demiplane. Lear's pupils shrank. These two-headed ogres are not from the main plane, but from a demiplane. This made him curious. Outside of the main plane, there are countless dimensional planes. These planes are dead and empty. Some are rich in minerals and have piled up into mountains. Some are buried with the relics of ancient civilizations. Some are the nests of some powerful beings, but without exception, every time the dimensional plane connects to the main plane, it will attract countless prying eyes, because this means that there may be an unexplored treasure waiting for him to lift his skirt. A demiplane is a world that has not developed into a complete plane, but no matter what, he was very interested. Chapter 64 Level 11 Hero. Slavery. Thanks to my friend for the first order. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After thinking about the demiplane, Lear withdrew his mind and stared at the two-headed ogre hero who had awakened during the battle. The opponent's attributes are the same as those of the Swamp Queen, very simple, two-headed ogre, level 11. Status, transforming. The battle just now caused the opponent to burst into life and death and enter transformation. When the transformation is completed, it will inevitably become a heroic unit. The level 11 heroic unit became a prisoner. TSK, just thinking about it made his heart flutter. Are you strong? Sorry, you are mine now. Looking at Lear's subtle eyes, the two-headed ogre lord on the ground felt a little panicked for no reason, as if he was being targeted by some ferocious demon. He took a deep breath, suppressed his inner uneasiness, and said in a deep voice. Dear sir, it's not just wealth. As long as you can help me kill the traitor, I am willing to lead the Redstone tribe to surrender to you, become your weapon, and fight for you. At this moment, he had nothing left. The traitor who killed his father still rules his tribe. The last of his subordinates and companions had all died in battle. He has also become a prisoner and may be beheaded at any time. He no longer had any leverage, so he could only put down whatever he could. As long as he is alive, there is hope. Even if he is reduced to a slave, he will definitely take revenge, absolutely. His eyes became extremely determined, and there is nothing shameful about surrendering to such a person. Thinking of the overwhelming attack of woodlice, there is still some shadow in my heart at this moment. When Lear heard this, he was a little surprised that what this guy said was actually sincere. Interesting. Relax your mind, I will leave a mark on your soul. From now on, you will become my slave. The two-headed ogre chief gritted his teeth. Can you avenge me? Lear looked directly at him. My subordinates will never be bullied by others. The territory you were supposed to occupy has been taken away by an outsider. Then he is not robbing you, but robbing me. Why do those traitors dare to snatch territory from me? Why do they rule my tribe? Why do they take my wealth? I will send out troops to take back my territory, my subjects, and my wealth. The two-headed ogre chief felt his brain shut down for a moment. This gentleman has such strong logic that he didn't know how to answer for a moment. He took a deep breath and said in a shaky voice. That's how it should be. I'm going to execute all those traitors, he said with caution. Sir, I am willing to become your slave and serve you. Lear's eyes were deep. The man is a swordsman and I am a fish. At this point, it doesn't really matter whether the two-headed ogre is willing or not. At most, it is the difference between forced enslavement and active enslavement. After the soul mark is imprinted, it is the same. While thinking, the godhead within the magic seed was quietly moving, sacred, majestic, untouchable, unexplorable, mysterious, and surging pressure swept over it. The two-headed ogre was instantly frightened. He fell to the ground, looking sideways at the human boy standing in front of him. The face that was too young now looked even more majestic. Not angry but powerful. With every move he makes, he commands all directions, like a king who controls the fate of countless people. This scene slowly overlaps with the previous scene of controlling the insect swarm and coercing all directions. Double punch. His heart trembled, and without any thought of resistance in his heart, he was directly imprinted with a soul mark. But at the moment when the mark was carved, Lear suddenly felt dizzy, and there was a dangerous aura in his mind. He held his breath fiercely and took a few slow breaths before the dazed feeling gradually dissipated. A sudden realization suddenly arose in my heart. Backlash. There are too many imprints on the soul. His soul at this moment could no longer bear a more powerful enslaving power. Every trace imprinted on a subordinate's soul will involve a part of his soul power. Today, the Mire Queen, who commands a massive swamp wasps, and the two-headed ogre, which is up to level 11 and is transforming into a heroic unit, are inscribed one after another. Let his soul endure to the limit. He took a deep breath and looked a little solemnly. It's no wonder that the gods of this world don't imprint all of their believers so that they will be eternally loyal to them. You can even often hear news of betrayals of your own religious sects and gods. It's all for a reason. If the soul can be infinitely powerful and make everyone loyal to itself, then perhaps there will only be one ruler of this world. Take a deep breath and calm down. The skill of God's residual power can be powerful, but it requires his soul to be strong enough, otherwise, it will be difficult to withstand the backlash of those enslaving people. Authority is still authority. As long as he can control the authority, he can usher in a huge improvement, and this problem will not be too serious. Owner. The voice of the two-headed ogre chief interrupted his thoughts, and all the hostility in the other person's eyes had dissipated. The mark engraved on the soul can directly change its concepts and thoughts. Extremely domineering. Lear was furious when he saw this. The magic power in the body is mobilized. Bounty of the swamp. A powerful healing spell poured into his body, and his weak aura immediately stabilized. Waving his hand, he asked the wetland lizard man to untie the chains. After the two-headed ogre, who was tied up like a dumpling, regained his freedom, he stood up with a complicated look in his eyes. He turned his head and looked around, then slowly knelt on one knee, lowered his head, and saluted Lear with the most humble attitude. Master, Redstone, salutes you. Seeing this, Lear's mood became better again. In one day, he harvested Achaea, the queen of the swamp bee, and the 11th level two-headed ogre chieftain. This is too cool, he likes it. He also accepted the backlash, and the other party also brought a piece of news about the Demiplane. This made him very important. Stand up. Tell me about the situation of the Redstone tribe and the Demiplane. The two-headed ogre immediately stood up and said respectfully. Master, the Redstone tribe has been passed down for more than 500 years. Its name is named after our Redstone family. We have always occupied half of the Broken Star Plain, and the territory we rule covers an area of more than hundreds of kilometers. The tribe has more than 10,000 people. Every ruler of the tribe will be crowned as king, and it has always been ruled by our family. But just half a year ago, my father was ambushed and killed by a lowly traitor. I was also demoted, and later the other party even sent heavy troops to hunt me down. After a few words, Lear had a general understanding of the Redstone tribe and the other dimensional plane called the Broken Star Plane. The number of the two-headed ogres in the Redstone tribe exceeded 10,000, occupying half of the territory of the plane, in brackets, hundreds of kilometers. In addition, the environment of that plane is harsh, the products are scarce, and the food is short. Survival is a big problem, so occupying hundreds of kilometers of territory can only support tens of thousands of people. In addition to the two-headed ogres, there are 7 or 8 small races in it, but the geographical location they occupy is more desolate, and the two-headed ogres are unwilling to occupy it. The so-called traitor is the person who seized the position of the chief of the Redstone tribe. He really didn't want to call the chief of a tribe of 10,000 people a king. It's too cheap, but the traitor should not be underestimated. His level has reached level 13. This guy, is only level 11, and he was not a hero unit before, so he can't compare at all, but it seems that there is nothing to gain from this plane. As he talked, Lear was unwilling to give up and asked about the specialties in it. The two-headed ogre chief answered a lot, but he was not interested. Instead, when talking about the mine, an unintentional remark made him excited. In the Redstone tribe, we mainly rely on the three-tailed pigs to provide meat. Those livestock are easy to feed. As long as they have wild grass to eat, they can grow meat. If there is enough food, it only takes 3 months to grow to 600 kilograms, so the warriors of our Redstone tribe are relatively strong in combat, and they occupy as many as 7 mineral veins. Lear suddenly interrupted him. Tell me more about these three-tailed pigs. That the ogre chief was stunned. Sir, don't you talk about the mine, that what's so strange about pigs? Lear glared at him unhappily. Stop talking nonsense, but can you grow 600 kilograms of meat in 3 months? This is simply a huge fortune. What kind of bullshit or gold can compare with this good thing? Chapter 65, Overwhelming Wealth. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Food is not scarce in the swamp, but it becomes a bit scarce in the wilderness. People who often raise pigs should know the concept of a pig that can grow 600 kilograms in 3 months and 90 days, that works out to 6.6 kilograms of meat per day. As soon as he woke up, the pig in his pig pen weighed another 6.6 kilograms. I can't finish it. I can't finish it at all. At present, the food in Wailuz City is relatively simple, and the inventory is pitiful. The only meat available is fish. If 3-tailed pigs can be raised, it will undoubtedly greatly improve food self-sufficiency. More importantly, this is a magical world. Raising pigs is not just for eating. The divine life of the flesh slayer needs to be watered with flesh and blood, and the wetland lizard men can also gain power and evolve from the life essence of the corpse. Perhaps to ordinary people, these 3 pig tails are valuable, but they are not important. But in Lear's eyes, this is strategic material. The strength of a territory requires not only strong military strength, but also sufficient logistical support. War is always about economics and logistics. Seeing how serious he was, the 2-headed ogre chief immediately took it seriously. Master, we accidentally discovered the 3-tailed pig in a pothole. We didn't pay much attention to it at first. We thought it just had a few more tails than the ordinary pig. Later I found out that the other person could eat a huge amount of food every day. And his growth rate was astonishingly fast. An ordinary pig weighs less than 50 kilograms, but the other pig has grown to 300 to 400 kilograms. And they are not picky about their food at all. As long as you give them wild grass, they can grow meat. He said it with a bit of bitterness. But the broken star plain is too barren, with very little grass. So we can only barely maintain a life of eating meat for a month. Lear said enthusiastically. Is it easy for 3-tailed pigs to breed? The 2-headed ogre chief had a strange expression on his face. As long as there is enough food, they can give birth to more than 10 piglets in 1 litter, and they can give birth to 1 litter in 4 months. Give birth to more, grow faster, eat as much as you want. Lear's eyes became brighter and brighter. No wonder the big forces in the main plane are all coveting the secondary plane. According to various legends, once the secondary plane appears, they will be beaten to death. Those secondary planes are untapped treasures. He had never heard of any livestock growing so fast, and feeding is so cheap. Isn't this the chosen one? Where is that space gap? If we enter it now, can we get the 3-tailed pig? The 2-headed ogre chief said solemnly. Master, the space gap is not far from our station, but if you want 3-tailed pigs, you don't need to enter the broken star plane. I brought a few out when I escaped. Lear was stunned for a moment, with a strange expression on his face. Aren't you people who were being hunted and fleeing? Who is running away with pigs when they are fleeing? It feels like an eye-opener. This magical world really has no logic at all, right? After a moment of silence, he hesitated. When you escaped, did you bring anything like the dragon egg artifact with you? The ugly face of the 2-headed ogre chief twitched, and his eyes were filled with resentment. If we had this thing, would we still run away? Lear waved his hand and said impatiently. Come on, follow me and bring back the 3-tailed pig. The 2-headed ogre chief smiled bitterly and nodded. He has never seen anyone so active in catching pigs. It was already 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and Lear didn't waste any time. He took 5 teams of wetland lizard warriors and set off straight away. These are used to drive away pigs. The real fighting power is the more than 10,000 mire wasps flying overhead. Once these ferocious bugs reach a large scale, they will be a natural disaster that can make everyone tremble. After Lear enslaved the mire queen, he also gained command over the mire wasps, can issue simple orders such as attack, retreat, and alert. No wonder the soul cannot carry more power. He appears to be enslaving only one mire queen, but in reality he controls the entire colony. The traveling speed was very fast, and the swamp monsters on this road had already been cleared away without any obstacles. We arrived at the gathering place of the 2-headed ogre before sunset. I came here once before. To explore, but this time I felt a little different. This gathering place is built on dry and hard ground, surrounded by more than a dozen rough buildings mixed with wood and stone, which is full of primitive feeling. It was deserted now, with only some simple living tools piled up haphazardly. The two-headed ogre chief looked at his territory and felt a little sad for no reason. Although Welu City was established in the swamp not long ago, under the management of its owner, a magnificent building more than 10 meters high and completely woven with vines has been built, and he also enslaved hundreds of people to work in Welu City. He even commands a swarm of bees that looks like a natural disaster. And in the territory he has been running for such a long time, he has only made so much tatters. People are more likely to die than others. I feel ashamed in my heart. Taking a deep breath, he pointed to the tall grass behind the house. Master, we kept the three-tailed pig in the back. Lear nodded slightly and strode forward with everyone. The mire wasps in the sky have included the entire area under surveillance, so there is no need to worry about safety issues. Passing through the rough primitive wooden and stone houses, there is a 1-meter-wide path in the grass behind, and the ground is trampled smooth. After walking 30 or 40 meters along the path, a circular pigsty surrounded by firewood appeared in front of us. The stench of fermented feces assaulted my nostrils and stung my eyes. Lear frowned slightly, his magic power surged, and his face looked better after the stench around him was dissipated. Looking around curiously, the pigsty was about 30 meters in diameter, and there were 20 extremely strong black fat pigs growing in it. The whole body was covered with mud, forming a thick armor of mud. The shoulder height of all of them exceeds 1.5 meters, and the body length is at least 3.5 meters. Standing on the ground, it looks like a mountain of meat, which is very visually impactful. Three-tailed pig. Magic life, level, 1 star, racial talent, 1, super strong digestion. The three-tailed pig can extract the nutrients needed by the body from everything eaten in its stomach, and anything that cannot be consumed will be quickly excreted from the body. 2. When hungry, the three-tailed pig will not feel full and can keep eating. Evaluation, if they don't need rest, they can last a whole year. Good guy, these three-tailed pigs are actually magical beings. Lear's eyes lit up. These pigs have no skills, but like the swamp banshee, they have 2 racial talents. No wonder the two-headed ogre chief said that the other party could grow to 600 kilograms in 3 months. These 2 talents are purely for eating, a powerful digestion, a never hungry. If this doesn't make you fat, who will? If the three-tailed pig were placed on Earth, the price of pork would only be 3 yuan a pound, but this is what he needs. Hags, take the people and drive all the three-tailed pigs back to the city of Welu. We will build a large pig farm in the future. That he already has a fish pond, and now he has a pig farm. Ha ha ha, the future is bright. Haggis, the hero, shrugged his nose, resisted the stench and entered it, and led the wetland lizard men to drive away the three-tailed pigs. It is also difficult for these soldiers. They are good at fighting on the battlefield, but they have never done anything like driving pigs. Fortunately, the gluttonous life is quite docile, and it will just run away if it is driven away casually. After the three-tailed pig left and looked at the empty pigsty, Lear seemed to have thought of something and asked curiously. Why didn't you see the three-tailed pig cub? That the two-headed ogre chief said quickly. Master, a group of terrifying giant mosquitoes passed through the border some time ago. They killed all the cubs and took them away. They also killed 3 of our adult pigs. He said, feeling a little distressed. These pigs are raised little by little. Giant mosquito. Lear suddenly thought of the giant flesh and blood mosquito that hunted giant pythons that he had discovered when he was looking for the swamp banshee. Are they the same group? Subconsciously, he raised his head and glanced at the swamp wasps that were blocking the sky. How do those giant flesh and blood mosquitoes compare with the killing machines he controls? Do you know where those giant mosquitoes are? The two-headed ogre chief pointed in one direction. 10 kilometers ahead from this location, there is an area with unique vines. Those giant mosquitoes have built nests in it, and they are all full of mosquitoes. He said he was a little scared. At that time, I followed him and was almost discovered by the other party. The ruler of those giant mosquitoes, the Mosquito Queen, is a powerful hero whose level has reached level 13. Mosquito Queen. This title aroused strong curiosity in his heart, but after looking at the darkening sky, I still suppressed the urge to go and find out, take a deep breath and speak slowly. Tell me more about it when you get back. Now let's drive the three-tailed pig back. Today's harvest is too great and needs to be digested properly. In addition, it is already August 14th. Early this morning, August 15th is the time for the intelligence system to be refreshed. Return. Chapter 66, Inventory of Achievements, Intelligence refreshed to 4-star intelligence. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 66 Achievements Inventory, Intelligence Refresh, 4-star intelligence. When Lear led the army to drive the three-tailed pig back to his territory, it was completely dark. The light emitted by the Vine Fairy became the only light in the territory. Among the scattered lights, it looks particularly eye-catching. When night falls every day, it is their busiest time. The City Hall, which covers an area of more than 200 meters in diameter and is completely woven with starry sky vines, has reached a height of 12 meters. The visual impact of suddenly seeing such a building in the primitive swamp is unparalleled, magnificent and towering. These are the results of the little guy's hard work during this period. After a busy day, the crowd rested on the grass. The swamp people and the Delsa people have mingled together, talking to each other, and passing the free time of the night. Most swamp life has dim vision, and an environment without much light will not make them feel uncomfortable. After the three-tailed pig driven by the wetland lizard people entered the territory, it immediately aroused curious crowds. These 23-tailed pigs are all adults and weigh more than 600 kilograms. That is to say, it has no fangs, otherwise it would be a beast if it charges. Is this a pig? Why does it have 3 tails? It's the first time I've seen such a strong one. Looking at the fat on their bodies, they feel delicious. So fat, I think. The buzzing crowd immediately caught Bane's attention, and he quickly stood up and came out to greet them. When he saw 20 fat three-tailed pigs, his mouth watered. The tone was excited. Sir, these pigs are so strong. Enough to feed us for a week. Lear smiled. These three-tailed pigs are not meant for slaughter. You go find a piece of land and raise them in captivity. The tone was cheerful. Three-tailed pigs only need to be fed for 3 months to grow to 600 kilograms, and they can give birth to 3 litters of cubs every year. Every time a litter is born, the number is no less than 10. It won't be long before we can breed them. At that time, we can have fresh pork to eat every day. That being able to eat meat every day is a treatment that only the noblemen in Lowland City can have. For ordinary people, it would be considered good if they could eat it 3 or 2 times a year. The more Bane listened, the more surprised he became. It felt like listening to a bard telling those legendary stories. He had raised pigs before, and it would be great if they could grow to 50 kilograms in 3 months. These pigs with 3 tails can actually grow to 600 kilograms. God of the swamp, this is a miracle. My lord, this is unbelievable. But as he spoke, he calmed down a bit and asked hesitantly. What should I feed them? The example of dragon blood red fish is right in front of us. Those 2-star magical beings have a lot of power, but they don't even open their mouths to eat. If these pigs were like this, he would have a headache. Lear chuckled. Just feed them regular weeds. These pigs are not picky eaters. The anxiety in Bane's heart was instantly swept away, and his face showed great joy. Praise the goddess. This is so perfect. He turned around and looked at those 3-tailed pigs as if he were looking at his wife, salivating and excited. I will immediately arrange for someone to raise it. Lear waved his hand. There is no rush. You can go down and discuss it and designate an area for breeding. In the future, we will build a dedicated pig farm, and these 3-tailed pigs will become the strategic resources of Welu City. After speaking, he reminded again. When selecting a pig farm, factors such as the feces, sewage, and odor produced by the 3-tailed pigs must be taken into consideration, and the farm should not be too close to the city of Dew. Once a pig farm becomes large-scale, the smell will definitely make people head over. On Earth, there are strict requirements for farms. The most basic one is to stay away from crowds. Yes, sir. After the topic was over, Lear looked up at the sky. Has the location for the mire wasps been chosen? Your Excellency Acania has decided on a location. 3 kilometers north of, there is a large tree more than 20 meters high where you can camp. At present, arrangements have been made for the wasps to move their nests. A single mire wasp is not a powerful being, but once it forms a large scale, few creatures in the swamp dare to actively offend them. Don't be afraid of danger at night. Lear nodded, said no more, waved the army to disperse, and handed the 3-tailed pig to Bane. The swamp hero was quite excited and took command in person, calling the crowd to come to help. He drove 20 big fat pigs with a smile on his face that was brighter than a chrysanthemum. This is a treasure. With more people and strength, a temporary fence was quickly built at the edge of the territory. Wait until dawn tomorrow to find an area suitable for establishing a pig farm. Lear didn't interfere. Just as he was about to go back to the tent to rest, he suddenly noticed from the corner of his eye that the swamp banshees were looking at the excited and heated crowd with blurred eyes. They could vaguely feel a unique energy pouring into their bodies. This is, immediately think of the other person's talent, using emotions as food. You can increase your own strength by swallowing your emotions. Immediately I became interested. I have been so busy these days that I have somewhat neglected the swamp banshee. These backbones of spiritual civilization construction cannot be wasted. Are you free to teach them some songs tomorrow? Or arrange a few operas? With the poor knowledge of this world, if you just play some sad drama, bloody drama, isn't it a crazy harvest of emotions? While thinking about it, ideas gradually came into my mind, but I've had a busy day today, and I'm physically and mentally exhausted. Tomorrow won't be too late. After returning to the tent, I washed myself briefly and lay down on the makeshift wooden bed, listening to the lively sounds outside. My heart gradually calmed down, my thoughts began to spread, and I silently took stock of the results of this period of development. He has not been in the swamp for a long time, but so far, he has gradually accumulated a certain amount of knowledge. The military strength in hand currently includes 14 teams, 2-star potential, and Level 7 Wetland Lizard Warriors, more than 90,000 Level 5 Mire Wasps, 12 Level 9 Swamp Treants. In addition, there are Vine Fairy, Bubble Beast, and Swamp Banshee, which are not many in number, but all have strategic power. Compared to before, they are completely two concepts. In terms of heroes, there is Bane, the hero of life, who is currently the steward of Welu City. Combat heroes. The level 11 two-headed ogre Chiefite who is still transforming, and the level 10 swamp queen in the same state, plus the level 7 wetland lizardman hero Haggath who he personally trained, but the most important thing is the flesh and blood slaughterer who is sleeping and transforming after merging with divinity. Once the opponent wakes up, it will give him an extra trump card. It can be said that the military power in his hands has increased more than 10 times compared to when he first stepped into the swamp. The development during this period has been fruitful. Lear felt much better. In terms of territory construction, a swamp land with 1,000 acres of farmland is currently being reclaimed, which will ensure food in the future. And he owns a fish farm that is raising 2-star magic life dragon blood red fish. Today, we got another 3-tailed pig with an exaggerated growth rate, and we are about to build a pig farm. Progress was equally rapid. The territory's buildings were cultivated by the Vine Fairy, and the most important city hall has also taken shape. This giant building, which covers an area of more than 200 meters in diameter, has reached a height of 12 meters and is expected to be topped out in 3 to 5 days. This magnificent building will be completed by the end of this month at the latest. At that time, you will be free to build other buildings, residences, tailor shops, blacksmith shops, etc. Buildings can be arranged. After sorting out the development results, Lear felt a strong sense of accomplishment. The city of Welu was truly built from scratch. The feeling is very subtle, like watching your child grow up day by day. After reviewing the whole situation, his thoughts became much clearer. There are several priorities for the next work. Externally, eliminating threats from all around. The rotten centaur 30 kilometers to the north, the dark naga learned from the half-fish population, has encountered the giant flesh and blood mosquito before and now knows the specific location. In addition, we have to explore the ancient ruins discovered by the half-murlocs, the demiplane mentioned by the two-headed ogre chief. At the same time, we must also pay close attention to the movements of the swamp authorities. Internally, the goal is to open up farmland as soon as possible and start cultivating food. At the same time, we will explore how to raise dragon blood red fish, and establish a pig farm to breed and increase the number of three-tailed pigs. I still have a lot of things to do." After some deep thinking, the crowd outside gradually became quiet. Lear looked at the roof of the tent, silently thinking about the future of the city of Dew. As the helmsman, he must know exactly which direction the ship is going. And he must guide his crew firmly. As she was thinking, time ticked by, and silently passed into the early morning. August 15th. The moment the time on the panel jumped, the intelligence system suddenly displayed new information. The intelligence system has been cooled down and the intelligence can be refreshed. Do you want to refresh it? Lear was awakened and immediately sat up when he saw the prompt, his mood instantly rising, eyes full of anticipation. It's finally here. Refresh. At the moment of confirmation, the information started to beat. 1. Dragon blood red fish is very picky and only eats fishtail grass. These aquatic plants grow deep in the mud of the pool where the dragon blood red fish is. 1 star. 2. At noon on August 17th, a group of wandering wetland lizardmen will pass by 20 kilometers west of. These wetland lizardmen hold the forbidden secret recipe for cultivating the lizardman's unique military type, the cold-blooded cavalry. 2 stars. 3. Colorful moss is very suitable for feeding three-tailed pigs. It grows next to the mud pool 2 kilometers north of the territory. As long as there is sufficient fertilizer, the growth rate of colorful moss will be greatly increased. 3 stars. 4. The lifespan of a bog wasp is 3 months, and the lifespan of a bog queen is 3 years. The mosquito queen can produce unique blood semen, which can be provided to the bog wasps and queens to extend their lives. 3 stars. 5. There is a ray of divinity in the hands of the dark naga, and feeding it to the flesh and blood slaughterer can increase its strength again. 4 stars. Purple. After reading the updated information, Lear's breath couldn't help but his eyes became hot. There is only one thought in my mind. It's happening now. Each piece of this information is worth thousands of gold. And the most terrible thing is that the 5th article actually revealed 4-star intelligence. Chapter 67, Exaggerated Colorful Moss, Pig Farming Expert. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Except for the first 6-star gold intelligence, this intelligence is the most valuable. Each one is very useful, and can't even be judged by the value marked. The last 4-star purple intelligence is even more explosive. It's about divinity again. Lear took a few deep breaths and couldn't suppress his excitement. Too fierce, too awesome. Look at it again from the first one. The fact that the dragon blood red fish never opened its mouth to eat troubled him for many days. These 2-star magical creatures not only taste rare in the world, but also can permanently improve physical strength. It has great breeding value. It is much more promising than the breeding in the book of getting rich. Now I have a direct solution. Comfortable. It's nothing more than not finding the right food to feed the other party. Who would have thought that the food the other party likes to eat is hidden deep in the mud? The second piece of information about the wetland lizardman the new wetland lizardman will pass by the day after tomorrow, and the other party also carries the taboo secret recipe of the lizardman's exclusive army. Although the power in his hands has been greatly improved after enslaving the swamp wasps, but the swamp wasps cannot completely replace the normal troops such as the wetland lizardmen. They are assassins with high attack and low blood, and they will suffer a lot of losses in every battle. The enemy encountered is stronger. Even if you win, you have to pay a big price. If they are used to attack with ground troops, the effect will be more impressive. The cold-blooded cavalry, a lizardman exclusive unit, also made Lear very interested. He has never heard of this unit, but since it can be marked by the intelligence system, it must be extraordinary. Azcags tomorrow. The third piece of information, worth 3 stars. Colorful moss, suitable for feeding three-tailed pigs. The three-tailed pigs eat everything, but by the same token, since it can be marked as 3 stars by the intelligence system, it is definitely not ordinary. If it wasn't late at night, he would have planned to set off immediately to find it. The pig-raising plan cannot be delayed. The fourth piece of information surprised him even more. The lifespan of the swamp wasp is only 3 months, and the queen of the swamp can only live for 3 years. If he hadn't received the information, he would have reacted only when the swamp wasps died in large numbers. Fortunately, the information came in time. The blood essence produced by the mosquito queen can extend the lifespan of the swamp wasps and the queen bee. These insects are so powerful. Lear's eyes flickered. In this case, he needed to get the mosquito queen as soon as possible. He didn't want the insect swarm he had just controlled to decay and become extinct in a few months, but the mosquito queen is a level 13 hero unit, and he must be fully prepared. The last purple information made Lear's heart surge. This is the first time that 4-star information has been refreshed in so many days. The refresh rate is a bit low, but the information content is very powerful. Divinity. The Dark Naga actually hit such a good thing. However, the bigger the wind and waves, the more expensive the fish is. The opponent who can protect the divinity of 4 stars will definitely not be a soft persimmon. Moreover, I had heard from Delsa before that the Dark Naga had recruited a Cyclops. This made those lives even more mysterious. They should not be underestimated. Lear withdrew his thoughts and his eyes became deeper. If all these pieces of information were completed one by one, the foundation of the city of Wei Lu would be more abundant. Perhaps it would not be long before we could consider expanding the territory and conquering the entire swamp. It took a long time for me to calm down and then I slowly fell asleep. The next morning, Lear woke up at dawn and called Bane, who was also busy. He gave orders directly. There are large areas of silt at the bottom of the pool where the dragon blood red fish lives, and a unique aquatic plant, fishtail grass, grows in its depths. These are the daily food of the dragon blood red fish. Send someone to salvage some and try to plant some next to the territory. Bane's eyes lit up. I didn't expect to find a solution so quickly. That this dragon blood red fish is almost sick of not eating, and has been talking about it these days. The Lord is worthy of being the Lord. He immediately found 2 teams of swamp people and told them to go and salvage fishtail grass. The distance is not far, and the area has been cleared, so there is no need to worry too much about safety. Seeing this, Lear was not idle either. He waved his hand to call Haggis and took 2 teams of wetland lizard men to the north. The colorful moss is just 2 kilometers away, very close. On the way, he asked about the news of the cold-blooded cavalry with some curiosity. Haggis had some emotion on his face when he heard it. Master, the cold-blooded cavalry is very powerful and is the most ferocious cavalry of the lizard men. A squadron of cold-blooded cavalry can defeat several times the enemies of the same level and equipment. But the training method of this type of soldiers has always been kept secret and is only controlled by some large tribes. Lear smiled and said meaningfully, I think you will soon be able to see the cold-blooded cavalry of the city of Wei Lu. Haggis was stunned, and then a huge surprise appeared on his face. Lear has already established absolute prestige in their hearts these days. His status has almost reached the extreme. He couldn't say this without being sure. His mood was high, and his eyes were full of admiration for the cold-blooded cavalry, a nearly legendary existence among the lizard men. He didn't expect that one day he would be able to see and even command them. Praise the Lord. He led the crowd through the swamp in front and soon came to a muddy area. There were low grasses all around, and there was a dead pool here, which was not difficult to confirm. Lear turned his head and looked around, waving his hand to let the army disperse to search. 7-color moss, as the name suggests, this thing should be colorful. He bent down and began to search on the muddy shore. Moss is as common in swamps as silt. It is all over the half-dry and half-wet shore. After searching for a few minutes, Lear, who was walking in front of him with a bent waist, paused. A palm-sized piece of moss appeared in his sight, 2 or 3 centimeters thick, with long hairs and several colors on it. Although the color is not bright, if you look carefully, you can still see 6 or 7 colors on it. He was slightly happy, stretched out his hand to dig out a circle from the periphery, and then carefully pulled up the moss, not caring about the dirt, and held it in the palm of his hand. It was heavy and quite heavy. Looking at it intently, its attribute panel immediately appeared in his mind. Colorful moss, magic plant, level 1 star, features, super strong growth. As long as there is enough nutrition, it can reproduce and grow at a very fast speed. Evaluation: if there is enough nutrition, its growth rate is beyond imagination. Colorful moss is actually a 1-star magic plant. Lear's eyes lit up. Its attributes are not complicated, but this super strong growth is very interesting. But to what extent, we will have to test it later. After finding the target, Lear did not stay for long, gathered his subordinates, and returned to the territory with the colorful moss. At this time, the mud people who went to find fishtail grass had already set off, and Bane was discussing the pig farm with 7 or 8 mud people. Seeing Lear return, he hurried forward to report. "Sir, after our discussion, we all agreed that the pig farm can be built 3 kilometers southeast of the territory. There is a large piece of flat, dry and hard land there. And this direction is always downwind, and the water flows downward, so there is less pollution. The increase in the number of 3-tailed pigs in the future will not affect the territory. Secondly, it is not far from the farmland area, and it is also convenient to use pig manure for composting in the future." Lear nodded. "Then let's set it here. Let's arrange people to cut down trees and build pig pens today." He took out the colorful moss. "Bane, bring some pig manure." Bane was stunned. "Manure? What is the Lord going to do?" But he didn't hesitate and immediately turned around to let the mud man next to him go down. After a while, he filled half a bucket of manure. Although he only slept for 1 night yesterday, the 3-tailed pigs had a lot of manure. Lear handed the colorful moss to the bog man with the bucket. "Take some soil and mix it with feces, then plant the moss and try it." The bog man touched his head, not understanding his lord's idea. "This moss is everywhere in the swamp, and it needs to be planted specially." But he didn't dare to be vague, and immediately took some soil and mixed it with feces, then carefully picked up the moss, dug a small hole, and planted it in the bucket. Seeing this, Lear looked at Bane with a puzzled face and whispered, "This is colorful moss, and we will use it to feed the 3-tailed pigs in the future." Bane looked a little stunned. "My lord, isn't this too little? The food that 23-tailed pigs eat in a day is probably more than 300 people. A 600-kilogram fat pig, how long will it take to plant such a little moss before it can be taken out to feed it?" Lear was about to speak, and the bog man who planted the colorful moss suddenly exclaimed, "It's growing, it's growing." "What's growing?" Bane turned his head subconsciously. In the wooden barrel mixed with feces, the 7-colored moss was growing at a speed visible to the naked eye. The thin and long hairs were swaying like octopus savings. The moss on the edge was like a video that was accelerated 10 or 50 times. First, it sprouted, then quickly aged, and grew thin but colorful long hairs on it, continuously. Under his astonished gaze, the palm-sized 7-colored moss only took 10 minutes to cover the wooden barrel, and then began to grow up along the barrel wall. This magical picture made Lear watch with relish. Bane and the swamp man were even more stunned. This can be so long. This is simply a miracle. I felt refreshed. When I came to my senses, I immediately felt ashamed of my ignorance. Just based on them, I dared to doubt the adults. How could they imagine the adults' methods? He immediately lowered his head, not daring to look at Lear. Half an hour later, the colorful moss had grown to fill a large bucket. The original half bucket of feces was completely covered with moss, and finally even overflowed from the bucket, full of vitality, until it hung down to the surface of the bucket. The moss gradually slowed down its growth until it stopped completely. Seeing this, Lear was also very curious. Waving his hand, he asked the mud man to pull out all the colorful moss. The mud man stepped forward, inserted his 2 hands into the moss, and pulled out all the mud underneath. Looking carefully, the feces below had completely disappeared. Only some black residue was seen at its roots. As long as there is enough nutrition, it can reproduce and grow at a very fast speed. Lear only now understands how exaggerated the other party's characteristics are. No wonder the intelligence prompts that it is suitable for feeding 3 pigs. One can eat and the other can grow. It's a match made in heaven. Pig farm, it can definitely be done. In a good mood, he said loudly. Bane, open up a piece of farmland next to the pig farm to plant colorful moss. I think the feces of the 3 pigs have a place to go. That the growth of colorful moss requires a lot of nutrients, and the feces of the 3 pigs is the best fertilizer. After the colorful moss grows, it can be provided to the 3 pigs for food. After eating, the other party will poop again. What is a perfect closed loop? Chapter 68 Cleaning Tools, Fishtail Grass, Mosquito Queen Conquering ing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The excited Bane nodded repeatedly. The growth rate of this thing is too exaggerated, perfect for making pig feed. Immediately, people were summoned to cut down trees and build pig pens. In order to speed up the progress, about 200 people were directly ordered and the three-tailed pigs were driven to the flat land 3 kilometers southeast. Building a pigsty doesn't have to be too complicated. You just need to keep the pigs in a pen, prevent them from running around, and prevent sneak attacks by wild beasts. In the future, as the number increases, troops will definitely be stationed here. With the strength of many people, enough trees were soon cut down to surround an open space with a diameter of 100 meters. It is more than enough to raise these 23-tailed pigs. Lear looked at the 3-tailed pig that was imprisoned inside, feeling quite happy. He directed the crowd to open up a large open space in the mud next to the pig pen, divide the colorful moss into dozens of parts and place one piece far apart. This piece of muddy land was originally fertile, and after the colorful moss was placed there, it started a show of crazy growth. However, the fertility is still not as good as that of pig excrement. After half a palm grows to a full palm, it slowly stops growing. After spreading it out, Lear saw it more clearly. The colorful moss has absorbed all the fertility of the surrounding 5 or 6 meters of land. The originally dark mud turned a little white, and even the smell faded. These moss grow quickly, but their demand for fertility is indeed exaggerated. But it doesn't seem like a bad thing. While thinking, Lear thought of some key points and looked at Bane happily. Take some of it back to Welu City later for planting. Bane was a little confused. Return to the city to plant, that this is a bit difficult to use. The territory is only so wide. Lear nodded. The toilets in the territory are still temporary, right? I will give you a rough drawing of the septic tank later, and you can have someone build one first. In the future, everyone must gather together to go to the toilet. Beside the septic tank, build a planting area of colorful moss. The daily waste of residents is all natural fertilizer. As he talked, Lear felt more and more the magical effects of the colorful moss. Don't talk about excrement like feces. Daily kitchen waste and dirty sewers can eventually flow into colorful moss. This thing is no longer fodder, it can completely become a cleaning tool for the territory. It is also harmless and does not require any energy or resources, and after it grows and reproduces, it can also be used to feed 3-tailed pigs. This is serious biological pollution control. After opening my mind, my eyes changed instantly when I looked at the colorful moss. Bane was stunned at first, and then he became excited after thinking about it. I immediately felt like a new world had opened up. How could this thing be played like this? Sir, this is a wonderful idea. Genius idea. Perfect idea. I'll make arrangements right away. Lear laughed. There is no rush. The most urgent task is to let the 3-tailed pigs give birth to more cubs as soon as possible to multiply the group. 3-tailed pigs can give birth to 1 litter every 4 months, with at least 10 piglets in each litter. With this exaggerated reproduction speed, the number can increase dozens of times in just 1 or 2 years. Once it reaches scale, it's time to harvest. After thinking about it, he summoned the level 11 two-headed ogre chief. This person is an expert in raising pigs. After all, the 3-tailed pig is a treasure that he needs to take with him when he flees. Soon, Ite, who was nearly 3 meters tall and looked like a little giant, walked quickly with 2 heads on his head. When he saw Lear, he immediately raised his chest and bowed respectfully. Good day, master. Lear nodded and motioned to the pig pen that was surrounded in front of him. 3-tailed pigs will be raised here in the future. You need to teach the staff here about breeding methods. Bane has already arranged for 10 people to be responsible for future breeding. Hearing this, they all looked at the 2-headed ogre chief curiously. The smaller subhead on its neck still had its eyes closed, like a sculpture, and the main head opened its mouth. Sir, the reproduction of 3-tailed pigs is very simple. Just feed them enough and they will reproduce naturally. And their mating success rate is extremely high. They don't need to be managed at all. The only thing you have to pay attention to is not to let them starve. Lear's mouth twitched. Foodies are easy to feed, right? After finishing speaking, Ite pointed to the nearest 3-tailed pig and said, those with erect ears are boars, and those with drooped ears are sows. Of these 20, 16 are sows, and all of them are pregnant with cubs. It is expected to be produced by the end of the month. Lear felt it was amazing that he could tell how long he was pregnant and what kind of baby he would give birth to at a glance. What kind of magical vet is this? Looking at Lear's surprised gaze, I'd explained with a little pride. Master, this is all a long-term experience. Three-tailed pigs have faint lines on their abdomens, which appear every month or so. You can identify them if you look at them more often. Lear gave a thumbs up. When it comes to raising pigs, you have to be a pig. I wouldn't care to read the book of getting rich without you. Let the two-headed ogre chief pass on all his experience to the breeding staff. After working for more than 2 hours, the first batch of glorious pig farm breeding experts were trained. The meat on the table of Wei-Lu City in the future will all depend on them. After the matter here was dealt with, another good news came back. The fishtail grass was caught. Lear immediately took Bane to the fish farm in the north to check curiously. At this time, more than a dozen vine-woven frames on the ground were filled with dark green water plants. The leaves of these water plants looked like fish tails, which was very strange. However, it was obviously just fished out, and there was still a lot of silt on it that had not been cleaned up. The dragon blood-red fish in the fish pond smelled the smell at this moment, and it kept splashing on the water surface. Appearing quite anxious, fishtail grass, characteristics, contains relatively rich energy. Evaluation: these water plants will take root in the deep mud to absorb nutrients. Fishtail grass has no level and its attributes are also very simple. Lear curiously stepped forward to pick up a handful, cleaned it by the water, and then threw it directly into the fish pond in front. Walala! The dragon blood-red fish with long beard, bright colors and slender body immediately looked like a wolf that smelled blood. It swung its tail wildly, opened its mouth wide and began to grab food. It was in sharp contrast to its previous appearance of not saying anything. This large handful of fishtail grass was eaten up in a few bites. It was obviously hungry these days. My lord, there is still a silt vacant land here. We can plant these fishtail grass here. Bane's tone was a little happy. The problem of the dragon blood-red fish was solved, which made him feel relieved. These 2-star magical lives can finally be fed. Lear nodded happily. Raise them all. Isn't it just like this to develop a territory, open up planting little by little, raise various livestock and poultry, and at the same time develop the army and strengthen yourself? At present, everything is going well. After these two things were dealt with, Lear, who was in a good mood, looked up at the sky. With a thought, he asked the swamp wasps flying above his head to call the swamp queen bee. The internal affairs have been settled. It's time to do something bloody. The lifespan of the swamp wasps is only 3 months, which is too outrageous, and only the blood essence produced by the mosquito queen can prolong their lives. This matter cannot be delayed for too long, the sooner the better. He is not sure how long these swamp wasps have lived. If their lifespan expires in 2 days, and 30,000 or 50,000 are killed at once, it will be a headache. First, attack the mosquito queen, stabilize the strategic forces in hand, and then plan other things. Chapter 69, Domineering Queen, Fierce Giant Mosquito, 7,800 words long chapter. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Queen Achaea soon arrived from her temporary habitat, with a wingspan of more than half a meter, black and yellow stripes all over her body. Her wings are thin but as strong and sharp as steel. The curved abdomen carries a sharp tail needle more than 30 centimeters long. It reflects a cold light, which is so ferocious that it makes people tremble. Once an attack is launched, even a heavily armored warrior will be easily penetrated. From the perspective of body structure, this is a killing machine born for fighting, and he still has 90,000 such a youthful version of the queen bee. I feel particularly happy when I think of this, but when I come to my senses, I still have to face the reality that their lifespan will run out. Lear took a deep breath and looked solemn. Achaea, how long is the lifespan of the swamp wasp? After thinking for a moment, the queen bee's mental power escaped. Master, the first batch of wasps with a number of more than 30,000 will die at the end of the month. The rest will also complete their mission at the end of next month. Lear's eyes condensed. This matter really can't be delayed. 30,000 wasps, this is 1/3 of the force, no joke. What about you? I was born just 3 months ago, and I still have nearly 3 years to live. The voice of the queen bee in Lear's mind was a little proud. Lear's mouth twitched. Why are you so proud of only living for 2 more years? Do you know the flesh and blood giant mosquito, that although the swamp wasps are nearly 20 kilometers away from the territory of the flesh and blood giant mosquito, their range of activities is definitely not small to feed so many subordinates, the chance of the two tribes meeting is very high. Sure enough, the queen bee immediately responded indignantly. Those damn mosquitoes have robbed us of prey several times. If I hadn't completed my transformation, I would definitely settle accounts with them. Lear said in a deep voice. Our hunting target this time is the leader of the flesh and blood giant mosquitoes, the mosquito queen. The blood essence it produces can extend the life of the swamp wasps and you. The compound eyes of the swamp queen bee suddenly became sharp, like a wolf about to hunt. Emotions fluctuated. Master! She shouted in a hurried tone, without saying anything, but the meaning she wanted to express was already revealed. Who would be willing to die if they could survive? The desire for survival is the most basic instinct of all life. There was no choice before, but now there is hope. The feeling is different again. Call all swamp wasps. Get ready to go. That the swamp queen was immediately excited. She raised her head and let out a penetrating hissing roar. The next moment, buzzing as if the nest had been poked, the sky suddenly became restless. Countless swamp wasps flapped their wings and rushed from all directions, and the light dimmed instantly. The surging sound made it difficult to hear what people were saying. Lear took advantage of the gap when the swamp wasps gathered and looked at Bane. How are the poisonous herbs I asked you to prepare to deal with the stinking giants? That after the successful ambush of the swamp wasps with the black dragon broadleaf grass, his mind suddenly opened up. Similar methods will not be bad for dealing with insects. The efficiency of slapping mosquitoes to death with your hands is far less than lighting a plate of mosquito coils, the right medicine for the right disease. The ruins occupied by the stinking giant monster should also emerge today, but there are priorities, and the mosquito queen is more important. Stabilize the swamp wasps, and the stinking giant monster can be solved at any time, Bane said in a deep voice. My lord, a total of more than 20 kinds of poisonous herbs have been collected and handed over to Danya for research. I will call her here immediately. Lear had never heard of this name. Who is Danya? Bane smiled bitterly. This is my adopted granddaughter. She likes to study alchemy by nature and is very naughty. But she is also quite talented. Yesterday, she successfully synthesized an alchemical poison that is quite fierce. Lee immediately became interested and asked Bane to go down and call for help. After waiting for a while, Bane brought a little girl of the swamp people who was about 1.4 meters tall and had a childish face. She looked no more than 13 or 14 years old. She timidly held Bane's hand, half hiding behind him, slightly poking her head out, and looking at him curiously with algae green eyes. Lee's face looked a little strange. You let this little girl study poisonous plants and insects? What alchemy is there? Bane pulled the little girl forward. My lord, this little girl's parents died when she was young, and I have always raised her. She is a little shy. Danya, salute my lord. The little girl blushed and dared not look at him. She gently supported her chest and said in a low voice. Lord, good day. The weak voice was drowned out by the wasps in the sky. Lear raised his eyebrows slightly. Good day, Danya. Bane said that the research on poisonous plants is handed over to you. Have you made any research results recently? We are going to hunt a giant mosquito that is more than 10 times larger than ordinary mosquitoes. We need your help. Hearing this, the little girl suddenly became energetic. She slowly stretched out her right hand and pulled the clothes slightly. A black and red, quite creepy black-spotted red bloodworm slowly crawled from the sleeve to the back of her hand. Lord, I have studied a lot. The swamp spider venom sac you sent is mixed with the venom of the black-spotted red bloodworm, plus the mist grass, the lost soul blue heart flower, and the nightmare grass. He spat out a dozen names that Lear had never heard of before, and finally said. I dried 7 of them completely, dried 4 to half dry, and completely raw to 2. Then I sprinkled venom on them to create highly toxic smoke. Ordinary people will go crazy when they smell it and directly attack the surrounding life. After exhaustion, the heart will stop beating and the blood vessels in the whole body will burst. Speaking of this, there was a bit of excitement in his eyes. "This is the most interesting alchemical potion I have ever studied," that he said, looking at Lear happily. "Lord, the black-spotted red bloodworms you recovered are really great. Their venom has the function of regulating and stabilizing other poisons, which is why the effect is so good." He said and handed over the cloth bag in his hand. "I prepared this. I call it black-spotted bloodworm powder. After ignited, it will take effect." The tone is innocent and lively, with a bit of the coquettishness unique to little girls. Lear's expression became quite complicated. Are all Meyerman girls so fierce? There was a black-spotted bloodworm over 20 centimeters long crawling on the back of the opponent's hand, which made his eyelids jump. Bane listened from behind, feeling a little proud and a little worried, looking at his niece's eyes. Doting and helplessness were mixed together. "Sir, Donia has some talent in this area." Lear reached out and took it, subconsciously opening the grey bag. Bane's expression changed and he quickly stopped him. "Sir, let me try." Donia whispered from the side. "Lord, you don't need to worry. I added several poisonous weeds to suppress the toxicity. It will only take effect if it is ignited." Lear waved his hand, stopped Bane, and opened it directly. "You can see that the small bag contains poison that has been ground into powder. You can faintly see some blue liquid mixed with it, and there are still some slight traces on it." After opening the bag, there was no smell. Looking at it intently, the attribute panel quietly emerged in my mind. Black spot bloodworm powder. Alchemical poison, level, 3 stars, characteristics. After being mixed and refined with more than 10 kinds of poisonous weeds and poisonous insects, it can release ferocious smoke after being ignited, which can make the inhaler go crazy and attack the life around him crazily. After the toxicity, the heart will stop beating and the blood vessels will burst. Evaluation: this is a potion refined by a genius alchemist with a flash of inspiration. It is extremely toxic. Lear's eyes became quite subtle. Good guy. It's actually a 3-star alchemical poison. Looking at the timid little swamp girl, her expression immediately changed. How old is this person to be able to refine a 3-star alchemy potion? What kind of talent is this? Why did he only find out now? Donia, how much black-spotted bloodworm meal did you make? No, all the materials Grandpa Bane gave me have been used up, that's all. Lear glanced at Bane. Give all the materials in the warehouse to Donia, and she will be responsible for managing and making alchemy items in the future. After speaking, he looked at the young swamp girl. Donia, I need a lot of black-spotted bloodworm powder now. If I give you enough materials, how long will it take for you to make it? The girl's eyes immediately lit up. If I can get people to cooperate with me, I can make all the poison in 2 hours. Lear felt happy and immediately waved his hand. Do it now. Yes, Lord. When Bane brought the excited little girl down, he opened the panel in his mind. Donia, level 5, occupation, craftsman, alchemist. Potential. Not fully awake. Racial talent, craftsman's heart, skills, skillful hands. Extraordinary alchemy, 2 stars, has a strong perception of alchemical items. During immersive research, there is a chance to improve the quality of first-level alchemical items. Evaluation: the little alchemist whose talent has not yet fully awakened gained the knowledge of alchemists in an accidental encounter. Her flash of inspiration may be able to create miracles. Lear was a little surprised. Donia is still young and still has plenty of room to grow. In the future, Whalus City might be able to have a top-notch alchemist. Alchemists are different from mages in that they use the materials themselves to blend and mix them to get the alchemy items they want. Mages use the power of magic to research and create items. The 2 paths are not the same, but in comparison, the number of alchemists is no more than that of mages, or even less. This is a profession that requires extremely high levels of knowledge and talent. It also has extremely promising future and development space. With the assistance of a large number of people, Donia quickly produced 2 sacks of black-spotted bloodworm powder. The whole production process is not difficult. The difficulty lies in coming up with a suitable formula. The same highly toxic substance, different proportions, and different degrees of dryness and Humidity have completely different effects. Lear felt very comfortable after getting 2 sacks of 3-star alchemical poison, and he praised Donia profusely. Great job. I'll leave all supplies like this to you in the future. Research more, it will come in handy in the future. Yes, Lord, that the little girl was very happy to be praised, and her smile was particularly bright. The black-spotted red bloodworm on her hand seemed to sense her emotions, and it also propped up half of its body and shook. The faces of the people around her changed. Lear smiled. He didn't say much. During the gap in making potions, the army had gathered, and he immediately led the team to the location of the flesh and blood giant mosquito. He only brought 4 teams of wetland lizard men, and the remaining squadron stayed in the territory. The main force of this battle was the mud swamp wasp. Without air defense means, participating in the battle was not very effective. There were also bubble beasts and swamp banshees accompanying them, the 2-headed ogre chieftain that led the way in front. The sky was a dark mass of fierce and brutal mud swamp wasps. The exaggerated number, just a glance, can make people feel cold all over. With mud swamp wasps accompanying them, everyone felt a surge in security. The speed of travel was very fast, but it took several hours to travel 20 kilometers, and it was not until afternoon that they arrived. After crossing a haystack and emerging from the water, the 2-headed ogre chieftain who was leading the way, immediately became energetic. Master, 2 kilometers ahead is the habitat of those mosquitoes. Lear's eyes fixed, he turned his head to look at the queen bee beside him. Achaea, let all the muddy wasps lower their altitude and fly close to the ground. Don't expose yourself. The muddy wasps, which were already flying at a low altitude of 3 to 5 meters, immediately descended and flapped their wings half a meter high close to the ground. Insects are much more flexible than birds, and can even hover in the air for a long time, which most birds cannot do. The speed of travel slowed down, passed through several reeds, and stepped into a tall forest. Although the trees were sparse, they were already in patches. At the signal of the 2-headed ogre chieftain, Lear turned his eyes and looked. A shocking scene was reflected in the sight. 200 or 300 meters ahead, huge pitcher plants were entwined on the tall tree trunks, and the lush green leaves were condensed with drops of dew. The red and green pitcher plants looked like trash cans that could be stepped on, with green lids hanging on them, but they were different from ordinary pitcher plants that were the size of a palm. These pitcher plants seemed to be magnified 100 times, and were much taller than people, more than 2 meters. They looked like bloody mouths looking at the sky, ready to swallow beasts at any time. The number of pitcher plants was densely packed, hundreds and thousands, and it was impossible to count them. What was even more surprising was that huge black and white spotted mosquitoes flapped their wings and went in and out of the pitcher plants. Its body was about 1/3 the size of a fist, and its mouth had a mouthpart as sharp as a steel pipe, with a wingspan of more than 20 centimeters. Nepenthes evolved to prey on mosquitoes, but at this moment, those giant bloody mosquitoes seemed to regard the Nepenthes as their nest. It is hard to imagine how many mosquitoes live in these thousands of giant Nepenthes. The 2-headed ogre chief showed a bit of coldness in his eyes. Master, it was these mosquitoes that killed the 3-tailed pig we raised. That he even had to take the 3-tailed pig with him when he escaped, and these mosquitoes actually robbed his pig in front of him. Damn it. Lear's eyes narrowed slightly. Where is the mosquito queen? That the fleshy giant mosquitoes are the same as the last exploration, all of which are level 3 monsters. The threat is not great. The level 13 mosquito queen is the most difficult point in the hunting operation. From level 10 upwards, every level increase will increase its combat power by a large margin. At this moment, the strongest combat power in his hand is the level 11 2-headed ogre chief, but in the battle of flying life, this ogre can't get involved at all. Do you see the big tree with reddish moss growing on it? The queen mosquito is hiding inside. Lear looked intently. In the central area, a giant pitcher plant that was wrapped around a tree and nearly twice as big as other similar plants appeared in sight. Its height was nearly 4 meters. The perception spread out, and Xiang could faintly sense that a ferocious life was sleeping inside. Its breath was much stronger than the queen swamp bee and the 2-headed ogre chieftain around him, and the terrible thing was that the other party seemed to be in the process of transformation. I could feel the vitality of a dragon egg hatching. My heart tightened. I can't wait. The other party was already level 13, and I don't know how ferocious it would be after the transformation was completed. He turned his head to look at the bubble beast. Ignite the black-spotted bloodworm powder to compress the air and store it in bubbles. Then bury the bubbles underground and set up an ambush circle. Swamp Banshee, wait for the Mosquito Queen to appear and enter the ambush circle, and immediately use singing to interfere with it so that it doesn't find the bubbles in advance. Akineia, you lead some of the muddy swamp wasps to attack the fleshy giant mosquito and attract the arrival of the Mosquito Queen. Lead it to the ambush circle and wait for an opportunity to escape. We have only one goal this time, the Mosquito Queen, that this area is too far from the center. The maximum control distance of the bubble beast is only 200 meters, it is impossible to reproduce the scene of the previous attack on the muddy swamp wasps. The combat power of the 13th level Mosquito Queen is definitely not something that ordinary life can resist. However, he currently has a great advantage. The enemy is in the dark, you can make full use of the first mover advantage and set traps to kill. Secondly, there are enough swamp wasps for the finale. 90,000 is enough to set off a natural disaster storm. Even if half of them are destroyed this time, no, all of them are destroyed, the Mosquito Queen must be taken down. If she can't take down the swamp wasps in her 3-month lifespan, she can only wait for the swamp wasps to die one by one. He doesn't want the swamp wasps to become a temporary experience card for 1 month. The order was issued, and everyone started to act. Bubble Beast blew out bubbles and put the burning black-spotted bloodworm powder into them. Thick smoke gathered quickly in the bubbles, and the latter was almost turning into substance. After gathering to a certain extent, Lear commanded Bubble Beast to bury the bubbles. Bubble Beast used bubbles to push open the soft soil, and then filled the mud with other bubbles. After the bubbles were buried, they quietly spread them on, and the excess was thrown directly to the back. The camouflage was not tight, but there was no difference in the ground. When the battle broke out, this was the main battlefield. In the chaos, it was even more impossible to notice the difference here. Do all this, Lear took a deep breath. He led the wetland lizard warriors to protect the bubble beast and retreated to the rear first, away from the main battlefield. He found a big tree and watched the movement in front from above. After everything was done, he looked at the queen bee beside him. Akineia, do it. That the queen bee immediately raised her head and made a low hissing sound. The next moment, the sky and the earth suddenly dimmed. Countless muddy swamp wasps were like a surging tide, transformed into arrows, and rushed directly to the flesh and blood giant mosquitoes in and out of the pitcher plants. The level 5 muddy swamp wasps, facing the level 3 flesh and blood giant mosquitoes, instantly broke out in a tragic fight. On the curved abdomen of the muddy queen bee, the 10-centimeter-long tail stinger was like a steel needle, piercing the flesh and blood giant mosquito fiercely during high-speed flight. The flesh and blood giant mosquito was caught off guard and melted like a snowflake encountering a flame. In the blink of an eye, the flesh and blood giant mosquitoes in front were cleared, but soon, the flesh and blood mosquito started to make a commotion. A buzzing warning sound was heard. A few breaths later, thousands of giant pitcher plants swarmed with dense giant mosquitoes. The space suddenly became dim and crowded, and there were only black and white spots in sight. The mosquitoes formed a black tide and launched a fierce counterattack against the swamp wasp. A flesh and blood mosquito collided with the swamp wasp at high speed, and its sharp mouthparts pierced into the wasp's body, opening a huge hole. Half of its wings were torn off, and it collided directly with the flesh and blood mosquito in front, then fell down and smashed into the moss. Crazy, tragic, this is a bloody battle between insects. With the home advantage, the number of flesh and blood mosquitoes is several times more than that of swamp wasps. However, the swamp wasps with higher levels and stronger combat power always take the initiative on the field. Crazy killing of all flesh and blood mosquitoes that can be reached. Blood plasma burst, and wings and body parts splashed everywhere. Lear watched hundreds of thousands of insects fighting each other from behind, and felt an inexplicable shock. This strong visual impact is unmatched by any blockbuster on Earth. The crazy killing and the noise of flapping wings finally affected the central area, the Mosquito Queen sleeping in the largest pitcher plant. Suddenly, Lear's pupils shrank sharply, and his eyes stared at the center of the battlefield. The Mosquito Queen has awakened Akineia and started hunting. That the compound eyes of the swamp queen bee beside him became extremely cold. Buzz buzz buzz. The wings flapped, piercing the void directly like an arrow. the few flesh and blood giant mosquitoes in front only saw a residual shadow flashing. Then they lost consciousness instantly. Lear could clearly see that wherever Akinia passed, the wings were like unfolded blades, directly chopped all the flesh and blood giant mosquitoes into dregs, pulling a bloody road in the air. Although the transformation is not yet complete, the level 10 queen bee who can command 200,000 swamp wasps is definitely not something that ordinary life can compare to. Buzz buzz buzz. Sensing the queen's awakening, the flesh and blood giant mosquito flapped its wings more frequently, making a dull sound, like thunder rolling in the sky. At the same time, the flesh and blood giant mosquito in the center of the battlefield suddenly separated to the left and right, making a path. A terrifying giant mosquito with a wingspan of more than 2 meters appeared on the battlefield. Its body was covered with black and white stripes, and its wings flapped densely, making a violent whistling sound when hitting the air. The surrounding air waves were rolling, and the flesh and blood giant mosquitoes next to it could not get close. The 6 slender long legs bent at the abdomen, and the compound eyes reflected a cold light. The mouthparts used to suck blood were as thick as a steel pipe, and the front was as if a section was cut off diagonally by a knife, and it was extremely sharp. The sturdy flesh and blood giant mosquito looked extremely small next to it, like a fighter flying next to an aircraft carrier. Mosquito Queen, Hero Unit, Level 13. Potential, 4 stars. 4 stars potential, Level 13 Hero Unit. The opponent's simple attributes made Lear's breathing heavy. This is definitely a strong enemy. His eyes suddenly looked at Akinia. The swamp queen bee became the key to this battle. She must lure the opponent into an ambush. Without the cooperation of the 3-star alchemical poison, black dragon bloodworm powder, this mosquito queen cannot be hunted. At this moment, the mosquito queen also discovered the swamp queen bee, who was still killing crazily. She exuded a creepy pressure. The wings flapped, like a bolt of lightning, and rushed to Arcania's side instantly. The 1-meter-long mouthpart, which was as sharp as a knight's spear, was flying at high speed. Even if it hit the city wall, it could create an exaggerated scratch. The swamp queen felt like she was enveloped in death, and she fluttered her wings and retreated to the side. The mouthparts as sharp as a lance cut through the void, making a whistling sound that pierced the eardrums. But the mosquito queen also has super flying abilities. With a flutter of wings, he turned around and chased after the queen bee. A level 3 higher than that already has an overwhelming advantage. The swamp queen tried to fight back several times, but the mosquito queen easily defused it. The difference between the two is very obvious. In the end it turned into a complete hunt. Another mistake was made to avoid the mosquito queen's attack. The swamp queen was emitting surging blue magic energy. It instantly enveloped all directions. The auras of the surrounding swamp wasps and the queen bee surged at the same time. Under the mad rush, the mire queen bee began to fight back. The tail thorn is like a dagger, thrust out crazily with speed. Some trees were interspersed in the center of the battle between the two, and a few flickers would leave deep scratches. As long as the mire wasps and giant flesh mosquitoes get close to both sides, they will be torn apart instantly. The speed of the two is too fast, and the battlefield is chaotic, so outsiders can no longer see the traces of their battle. After several collisions, large and small scars appeared on the body of the mire queen bee. There was even an obvious scratch on the head. At the same time, the center of the battle between the two sides gradually shifted to the location of the trap. Finally, after another collision, the mosquito queen fell into the trap. But as soon as the mire queen flew out, the mosquito queen followed closely. Bubblemon had no time to react and had already lost its target. Hero-level flying insects are much faster than life on the surface. It is sometimes difficult to swat a fly at home, and the extraordinary powers of life in these fantasy worlds are even more exaggerated. The queen bee quickly noticed this, and the level gap became more and more obvious. After several collisions, she began to be unable to bear it. In the last collision, Lear saw the queen bee pounce on the mosquito queen, and then hugged her tightly. As the wings of both sides flapped and entangled with each other, they suddenly fell to the ground. The mosquito queen wanted to take off again, but was caught tightly and both entered the trap. Lear's pupils shrank, and he gave the order decisively without hesitating for even half a second. Detonate! The tense bubble beast below trembled and instantly controlled the bubbles. The mosquito queen suddenly felt a very strong sense of danger. In his compound eyes, he saw that the soil on the surface suddenly expanded and then exploded. The thick smoke followed the strong air current and swallowed up everything around it. her body was unnaturally blown away by the air waves. And the wasp that was holding her forcibly was also thrown away. A pungent breath rushed into his body. She only felt dizzy, but I just wanted to flap my wings and fly away. Aha, aha, a faint singing voice sounded in my ears. Suddenly, she saw a sea full of blood. The blood exudes a sweet and delicious alluring fragrance. As long as she can swallow it, she will achieve the final transformation. I couldn't help but take a few deep breaths, but suddenly a strong pungent smell came. Cough, cough. A violent cough came out of his mouth unnaturally, the long blood-sucking mouthpart spouting out puffs of thick smoke, and the sight of the sea of blood disappeared without a trace. The Mosquito Queen was horrified. Just as I regained consciousness, I felt a strong sense of restlessness in my body. The compound eyes turn blood red and want to attack everything around them and destroy everything they can see around them. He became furious and rushed forward crazily, turning his head and waving his mouthparts like a spear. The giant flesh and blood mosquitoes and mire wasps that were swaying and flying in front were instantly cut off by it. Blood exploded. The strong smell of blood caused the Mosquito Queen's expression to change suddenly. I woke up with a start. My body's magic power was running wildly. Poof. Several large mouthfuls of blood spit out from the mouth. The aura of the body has weakened visibly to the naked eye, but it is also free of the poisonous mist. But I just wanted to flap my wings and fly. Suddenly, I saw that the soil not far away from me was cracking again. The Mosquito Queen's liver and gallbladder are split. Bang. Thick smoke and air currents swept in, covered in smoke for the second time. Suddenly, I saw the sweet sea of blood again. I woke up with a start and was about to take action. Bang. The third stream of air came from the thick smoke. The sea of blood emerged, and before I woke up, bang, I heard another tragic explosion. After taking a few wild breaths, the Mosquito Queen finally lost her will. The restlessness in his body could no longer be suppressed, and he began to attack everything around him crazily. Here are all enemies, all enemies. In the end, he only vaguely felt that the strength of his body suddenly disappeared, and then his blood vessels seemed to expand, and blood started to leak out, and his consciousness gradually became blurred. But at the moment when he was about to die, he suddenly felt a warm power pouring into his body. The breath of life stabilized again. Inying Chuchuo heard a voice with exclamation. The mosquitoes are too fierce. This forest has almost been razed to the ground. Fortunately, we have refined a 3-star alchemy potion, otherwise we would have been in trouble this time. Cut off all its wings and legs. The body is bound with something, we must not let it take off again. Chapter 70, A Small Profit. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Tall trees were broken in the middle, and the slanting treetops were inserted horizontally into the soil. The bodies of the bloody giant mosquitoes and the muddy wasps were scattered everywhere. Large pieces of pitcher plants were torn into pieces, and the air was filled with the smell of blood, soil, and moss. Lear looked at the messy scene in front of him, his eyes slightly fixed. He didn't expect that the Mosquito Queen who inhaled the black-spotted bloodworm powder would burst out with such exaggerated destructive power. Like a sharp sword, it crushed everything around it into mud while flying at high speed. It raged for 20 minutes before stopping. Fortunately, the bubble beast took away the muddy queen bee with bubbles at the first time. Otherwise, the muddy queen bee, who used herself as bait to force the Mosquito Queen into the trap, would be torn to pieces at the first time. The level 13 hero was too cruel. This was still the result of taking advantage of information and making sufficient preparations in advance. Otherwise, if they use force, they may not win even if they sacrifice all the swamp wasps. When the Mosquito Queen was rampant, the flesh and blood giant mosquitoes, which were seriously injured, scattered without command. They ran away directly. The relationship between the flesh and blood giant mosquito and the Mosquito Queen is far less close than that between the swamp wasps and the queen bee. The two-headed ogre chieftain, a fierce hero who is nearly 3 meters tall, has broken and torn all the wings and hairy limbs of the Mosquito Queen. At this moment, the Mosquito Queen's body is constantly oozing blood and collapsed on the ground, exhaling more than inhaling. Lear used healing magic to stabilize the opponent's life breath. Until this moment, he still couldn't see the specific attributes of the Mosquito Queen. Calming down his mood, the remaining power of the gods tried to dissipate, but he felt a wave of palpitations as soon as he came into contact with the Mosquito Queen. A strong sense of crisis rose in his heart. His soul could no longer withstand such high-intensity slavery. He took a long breath and retracted his mental power. turned his head to look at the bubble beast beside him. "Bobo, imprison the Mosquito Queen and transport her back. For now, we can only imprison her and talk about it later," he said, and took another look at the messy surroundings. All the corpses on the battlefield should be packed and taken away. The fight between the swamp wasp and the flesh-and-blood giant mosquito resulted in a large number of casualties, and these corpses are nutrients. Wait for the bubble beasts to take action. Lear entered the habitat of the flesh-and-blood giant mosquito with some curiosity. A lot of the 2-meter-high pitcher plants around were destroyed in the battle. At this moment it was empty and there was no host. He turned his head and looked around, and slowly came to the front of the giant pitcher plant where the Mosquito Queen lived. The height of nearly 4 meters is quite exaggerated. After getting closer, you can feel the oppression brought by the size of the body. Waving his hand, he asked the 2-headed ogre chieftain beside him to lie on the tree next to him to see what was hidden inside. This level 11 hero climbed the tree in 3 or 2 steps, looked up, and his eyes were a little strange. "Master, there is only some nectar in it." "Nectar? Get some out and have a look." The 2-headed ogre chieftain found a clean stick, leaned forward and picked some out from the pitcher plants. He turned over and came to Lear. Lear immediately smelled a sweet smell similar to honey, which made people hungry. He looked at it carefully, and its properties quietly emerged in his mind. Nepenthe nectar, level 1 star, features, excellent taste, rich in sugar, can be drunk directly. Evaluation, nectar secreted by mutant pitcher plants, used to attract insects to enter and kill. Lear's eyes lit up. These pitcher plants can actually secrete such good things. He immediately became interested. Let the 2-headed ogre chieftain try it first. It was also unambiguous, picked up the stick covered with nectar, put it to his mouth, and tasted it gently. His amber eyes widened instantly, and his face was full of disbelief. "Master, the taste of this nectar is also great. It's not as sweet as honey, but it has a strong floral fragrance. It's perfect after you take a sip," that he said, and took another sip. He kept praising. Learn also got interested. He found a wooden stick and probed inside again, picking some out, looking at it carefully in front of his eyes. The nectar was like flowing yellow amber, with a lot of tiny bubbles in it, and no impurities were seen. You can smell the floral fragrance when you get close. Tasting it gently, the taste seemed to be brewed with hundreds of kinds of nectar, and it was delicious. Learn's eyes lit up. What a good thing. There is no sugar-making crop like sugarcane in this world. The main source is honey. For ordinary people, sugar is a luxury. In Lauren City, only nobles can enjoy it frequently. If the pitcher plant can be moved back to the territory for planting, wouldn't it be a constant source of sugar? He became excited and looked at the pitcher plant itself. Mutated Nepenthes, magic plant, level 1 star, features, it can grow quickly with sufficient water and can secrete unique nectar. Evaluation, a plant that has mutated after being eroded by magic. 1 star magic plant. Lear laughed out loud. This time he found a treasure. He turned around and looked at the 2-meter-tall Nepenthes beside him, but there was no such effect. The attribute panel only showed Nepenthes, so, these 2-meter-tall plants are normal. Nearly 4 meters tall is considered a mutation. Lear's mouth twitched. The fantasy world really can't be inferred by common sense. Still unwilling to give up, he asked the 2-headed ogre chief to find a few ordinary pitcher plants. The nectar secreted by these pitcher plants has a rotten and fishy smell, with only a faint sweetness. It is completely incomparable with the mutant pitcher plants. Seeing this, he could only focus on the mutant pitcher plants again. But the problem is that the vines of this plant are dozens of meters around. The height of the pitcher plant is nearly 4 meters, and it is extremely difficult to transplant it back to the territory after taking root in the ground. While thinking, he began to check around the pitcher plant. After a while, he suddenly saw something and hurriedly bent down to pull a few times in the soil on the ground. At the root of the pitcher plant, a mini seedling that had just emerged appeared in sight. The mutant pitcher plant is obviously a plant that directly splits into seedlings, not a fruit seed. Hatching, Lear was overjoyed and waved his hand to let the 2-headed ogre chieftain dig up the soil with him to search. After 10 minutes or so, the soil around was searched. A total of 30 seedlings were found. Lear's face was full of smiles. This is a genuine magic plant, and the nectar secreted is so delicious. If it can be planted in the territory, then the city of Wei Lu will undoubtedly have another specialty. this unexpected harvest made him feel very comfortable. After searching the area again and failing to find more things, Lear stopped. He asked someone to put all the nectar in the pitcher plant back. But because the Mosquito Queen ate it, only 20 kilograms of nectar were obtained. At this moment, the bubble beast just collected the corpse. He did not stay any longer and returned to the territory with the army. The muddy wasps were still flying overhead to protect. Seeing that the bee colony was much smaller than before, Lear's joy faded a little. This time, the attack on the Mosquito Queen cost all the 3-star alchemy potion, black-spotted bloodworm powder, which consumed all the materials accumulated during this period. In addition, more than 30,000 of the 90,000 swamp wasps were killed in the battle just now. Sacrificing 1/3 of them, the Swamp Queen was seriously injured and dying. He cast the Swamp Gift dozens of times in a row to barely stabilize the opponent's life, but at this moment, he was still in a coma, and the Swamp Gift was no longer effective. Lear could feel that this battle had put the opponent into a deeper sleep, or it would take a long time to wake up. The only benefit was that after the Queen Bee fell asleep, his control over the swamp wasps went up a few levels. He could directly use mental power to control these brutal killing machines. All in all, the losses in this battle were still within an acceptable range. The main target, the Mosquito Queen, has been captured. This is the key to the survival of the swamp wasps. There is no need to worry about their lifespan in the future. The set goal was achieved. The loss was not more than expected, and a mutant pitcher plant that can produce nectar was obtained. All in all, it was a small profit.